I am your host, Carrie, giving us different perspectives on where we are and where we want to go on our journey. Thanks for being here, and I look forward to spending some time with you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another session of the Founder Series. I'm so glad that you're here. And we're here to inspire you, to bring amazing speakers, to maybe bring something to light that you haven't thought about before, and just to make sure that you're living the life that you deserve and you desire. So anytime we can bring a speaker that is as amazing as the one I'm going to introduce. I have followed Emily for quite a few years now. I love her work. I love her message. And I'm going to bring her on and we're going to have a great discussion. Her name is Emily Madill, and she is an author, mom of two boys. She's a certified professional life coach. I think there's probably a ton of other things I could add, Emily, but I'm going to just bring you on. Welcome. And thank you so much for being here. And we'll just get into the good, juicy conversation that I know we're going to have.
Yeah, I'm excited as always to sit down and have a chat with you, Carrie. So thank you for having me here today.
Great. So I know that I've had some of your books, the Fall in Love with Your Life 1 Week at a Time.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of a journal planner that you can go through and.
Yeah. So it covers you like for a year, and it's just basic, simple ideas that we all know about, but they just kind of give you that weekly intention to sort of draw on and implement into your life. So it's kind of a process book. Yeah. So you take one topic per week.
Yeah. I love that. It helps, instead of just sitting down and wondering what to write, it helps, the prompts help you to kind of.
And the idea too is to, like, with any sort of a weekly intention, is having that kind of keystone or that phrase or that word or that idea that you're implementing all throughout the week. So like when you're driving in the car, or when you're out walking, or when you're, feeling really stressed out, like having that kind of thing in the back of your mind that you can kind of just shine the light on a little bit differently to just kind of weave into your experience of living, right? Is sort of the bigger idea of it. Even more so, I would say, than sitting down to journal would be like actually taking it and just sort of keeping it sort of in the back of your mind throughout the week.
Right. And what that it helped me do was bring just awareness, awareness of what I'm thinking about sometimes. And this just puts stuff in there that I can bring forward. It's like, like you said, when you're driving, when you're grocery shopping, it can be anywhere that you implement a lot of these.
Shapes that conversation that you're having with, with yourself in a different way, right? Which is
the conversation we have with ourselves is one of the most important conversations there is.
Ongoing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. That was a big eye opener for me. I think when I started this on this path of really self-discovery was becoming aware of what that voice was saying in my head. That was a huge light bulb moment for me. And I had it actually, how I came to even recognize it was I was at a vision board workshop, and there was a heart surgeon came, and he was the lady who was hosting it had him come and do a visualization with us. And he was just amazing. He actually had a near-death experience. He actually passed away. And it was his mom who met him. This stuff is kind of out there, but his story was just incredible. He was probably so credible because he was a cardiologist, right? So you looked at him like, wow,
he's a doctor.
This is all based on science. And here he's had this experience. And his mom said, you're not ready to come yet. You need to go back down and look at the connection with the heart and the more spiritual side of it. So that's where he was just incredible. So he led us down this visualization. And during it, my girls were there too. And this was supposed to be just a light, happy vision board.
Happy January. Yeah.
And the next thing I know, I've just got tears coming down when we're in this visualization, and how he walked us through it. It was, you had to look at yourself and what you were saying to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, it was all of these really not nice things were coming up. So everybody's eyes were closed, thank goodness. But when we kind of came out of it, I had that little bit of a, wow, I didn't realize that that's how I spoke to myself. And really, I was very mean to myself. So we open our eyes and the girls are across the table, and my makeup's going down, but it was like the most amazing feeling. It wasn't sad tears. It was just realization.
Like a waking up kind of a thing to the inner
and I was like,
yeah,
I can do something about that, but we can't change anything until we're aware of it.
It's so true. It's the shining the light on it, right? And
Yes.
I think that's the work, right? But it is, it's I think every human stumbles upon it, hopefully at some point on their journey, or multiple points, right? Because we can kind of go back under, and but I think that's
what a lot of your stuff. That's
the big part of the message, like the fall in love with your life, and like I write a weekly, I call it like a happiness newsletter, and the idea isn't about being joyful and happy all the time. It's exactly what you're saying. It's about just having that awareness so we can kind of catch ourselves a little bit sooner, so we don't go down as far, for as long, right? So that we can create those resets in our life to come back to a place of feeling of self-worth is kind of the underlying kind of piece of that, right? To know and to listen in on those conversations that we're having with ourselves, because that is what shapes our experience of living. And, to make it be a life that we, with all the parts, the good parts, the hard parts, like if you're traveling through any distance of a life journey, like it's not all going to be happy experiences. And that's not what we signed up for, I don't believe. That's like right. Human journey is meant to be all of the feelings and all of the things, and to welcome it, and to kind of have that inner strength, knowing that no matter what is kind of placed before you, you can make it through. You might not have the biggest smile on your face, and but you have that resilience to know where to turn to kind of help you walk through whatever is placed before you. Right.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we're human. We're here for that experience. Yeah. And I love that you kind of clarified that, the happiness piece, that's what we long for, but it is not about putting on a fake smile and I'm happy all the time. And
that's what leads to anxiety. Like we have to feel all of our feelings, right? Like feelings are just feelings. They aren't who we are. They're experiences, right? But it's about welcoming all of it to have that full life that you wouldn't trade with anyone. I think that's kind of the like loving your life, right? Instead of like looking and having that, because society, especially now with social media and everything, is built on so much of like looking at what our neighbor is doing and comparing that. Like we all do it, but immediately, like I know when I'm doing it, the feeling is ick. Like it's not a good feeling because you're like wanting to kind of trade your experience with somebody else, right? And so I think just like owning our lives and our stories and our unique experiences and all the times we've messed up and things that we wished we wouldn't have done, like instead of like wishing it away, like just embracing it all, all the tragedy, all the joyful moments and all of that too, like what that encompasses, right? So I think like our unique kind of story, like it's amazing. And that in itself, like just approaching it from that way, I do think it feels good. Like, like there's, it just, but it does take constant work and constant recalibrating to kind of get there. Right.
It does. And like we talked about earlier, well, I just talked about this last week, was the comparison is the thief of joy. Right.
Oh, yes, I love that. That's one of my favorite quotes.
I love that quote. I don't even know who said it. Do you know who said it?
William Arthur Ward, I think. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, good. Got to give credit where credit's due.
Well, whatever. It's a very famous.
It's such a powerful, it's such a powerful, simple, and because it's the truth. I mean, I believe that is the truth, that it takes away our joy when we're constantly in comparison. But I love your tools that I think that you are so amazing at sharing. And I think I love it so much because you keep it simple. There's enough out there. There's so much out there. We can be overwhelmed with all the information coming to us. But I love how you kind of just bring it back to simple practices, because it takes the overwhelm, and it also takes out that if it's too much, I'm not going to do it.
Mm-hmm. Right? Or like there's a right way or a wrong way to do it.
Right.
I think is what so much is out there. So people are just like, I'm not structured, or, oh no, that's it. Oh, I'm not quite doing it right. So it's just an uncomfortable thing. Right. Yeah. And whereas it's just, like, I mean, I think it's not, I didn't invent the message. It's about sort of like getting through all of the noise. Right. And I know my turning point for me on this particular path was when my first son, who's now almost 16, I can't even believe that. He was just a baby, and I had that inner dialogue kind of thing going on that I was completely unaware of. I mean, I was happy in my life. I had all of the things, right? Yeah. But I can remember walking with my mom and kind of like just in a like complaining about this and that with the baby and whatever. And I don't remember what the particular story was, but she was like, well, what are you grateful for? What are you happy about? And I just remember like the tears just came down, and it was kind of like, I was so hard on myself. Like the conversations were just awful. And I went through like a whole program that dealt with that. But the biggest message in this program, it was called The Pursuit of The Pursuit was called The Pursuit of Excellence. Yes. Yeah, okay. It was all about just the like personal accountability. Like I just didn't understand like, oh, what, like I'm in charge of my own happiness. Like it was kind of like that experience that you were sharing where it was like, oh, this is so funny. I've been making it so much harder. Like it's just such a simple thing. Yes. It's my husband's not in charge of my happiness. My mom's not in charge of my happiness. Like this conversation. And it was such a relief because I knew where to then point, and it was just simple. It's like it's that conversation with myself. It's about implementing like proper sleep hygiene and exercise and really for me in my journey, it was the conversation, like kind of training those neural pathways that I still have to do, right? That conversation, because they're so well kind of worn in, right? From a lifetime. But what then I became so passionate about was my first writing project, which was the simplest, and it is my absolute favorite to this day, I think, because I was just filled with so much enthusiasm and excitement about like learning this like simple kind of truth was the Captain Joe series of books that I wrote for my son. His name is Joe. And it was all about that exact thing, was just there's like a thought zapping one, just because I was like, oh my gosh, like I wish I would have learned this at a younger age, right? Because what a different conversation. I mean, I do think the human, just the way society is set up, no matter what, we're going to have those kind of critical conversations with ourselves. But to know that at the end of the day, that I have something, like I'm the only one that can kind of shape that, right? You're the only one that can shape your happiness. And so that was, so I went down that path, just teaching it a really, really simple message that I was taught, just about that, our thoughts are powerful and that we have a say in it. Right. So, it's just.
Can you hold up that book?
Yeah.
Do you have that book?
Yeah. So I have this one, there's 4 books in the series, but it's just, even the illustrations are really like simple compared to, like a later one I have for it's on gratitude, Grateful Jake for my youngest son. And it's, but the illustrator for this one, like, she worked on like Pixar, and this was a local fellow, Luke, that did these illustrations that I love, but just, and I self-published it, and it was kind of like on my own, and it's, it's beautiful and whatever. And the message is so simple. And like, if you look at all of the books in what I've created, they kind of get more professional and better as time goes on. But this one is still my absolute favorite, I think, just because of the message. And some clinical counselors, funny enough, like this was meant for like kids around 5 to 7 years old. Just with the thought zapping wand and all that. And there's a wizard and a message and whatever, but they use it in their clinical practice with adults because it's such a simple message, because I think it's just coming back to that truth that, we need to, as our own advocates and on our own human journey, to take charge of our own personal happiness, and that it is so simple. Like, as soon as I'm not blaming you for my unhappiness or that situation, or because this happened, like we all have stories. Some people's journeys are so much harder than other people's, but you can look all throughout the world and people that know this simple truth, because I do think it's woven into the thread of humanity. Like, we've known this truth. It's not a new truth. But when we live from that way, we just make it so much easier on ourselves. Like, it is a more enjoyable journey because we're moving with the tides of our life instead of fighting against it or medicating ourselves or, all of those things that so many of us do. Right. So,
Well, and it's the numbing thing as well. I think that we can go through the life on autopilot or numbing with anything just so we don't have to feel.
Technology, everything, right?
Everything. And when we can allow ourselves to, I think what it is I actually think it takes some courage to take a look at yourself and it's hard to do.
Accountability.
It's hard for a lot of people to do. Oh, I'm a half, and
that's okay.
My shadow is like,
that's okay.
So when we talk about keeping it simple, when we talk about falling in love with your life, can you break down even in your own way? Like, again, this is, I share what works for me, you share what works for you, and then everybody just has to kind of take it, modify it, take what they like, leave what they don't like, and make it their own. But I think there's a level of a foundation that we can all probably start from.
Which is all so basic, right?
Yes.
Like, as you know, right? And it is about creating your own toolbox. And I do that with all of my clients. It's like, I think the biggest thing, because we all, myself included, will look to somebody else that maybe has that knowledge as knowing it more than we do, right? So it's like, I think number one, it's like seeing yourself as resourceful, like, right? And then creating your own toolbox by, tweaking, what's going to work well for you, right? And just taking, like, because there's so many different recipes out there, but it's like, number one, I think just like owning that you're resourceful, right? And then like creating that toolbox of simple ways. Like, some of the things that I do that I support other women through, like, I have a weekly planning membership where on Sundays, like, I've created a planner. It's like a feminine model that is very heart-centered, and it does have all the like tasks and to-dos. But one of the biggest things that we do in it, that the women who are not all like me, like, I'm a fairly structured person. That's how I thrive. Like, I like to create the container, so then I can kind of be creative and flow within it, knowing that like the time is kind of taken care of and all of that. Like, that's what works really well for me. Not everybody in the planner or in the membership is that way. Some people are way more free spirited and they kind of go in and do the planner that works for them. But the one thing that I would say we all do that is helpful, and I can offer this, and I'm sure it's something that you do, and maybe some of the women in your community do, is setting a weekly emotional intention. So like, I have a Facebook group that goes along with this membership. And one prompt that I always put out is, how do you want to feel this week? Like, what are you kind of calling in? Right. And setting that emotional intention is kind of very much like you sitting down and doing that sort of the vision board or whatever for your year, but instead you're doing it for your week. And again, it's not about setting yourself up to like have everything perfect or that it has to be that way, but it's like, I love looking at my week and being like, okay, I know I'm going on Carrie's podcast. I've got these coaching clients. I've got, my kids are in this, like looking at all the kind of moving parts of my life, like kind of creating that snapshot. And then I usually have it like, I'll, just sit down and have that kind of quiet time. And the intention comes to me because I'm open in that, like 10 minutes. It's not a lot of time we're talking here, right? Like it's not a super type A sort of thing. It's creating that container so that I can move through my week with intention. And so, and having that sort of keyword or touchstone to come back to. So this week it's like grounded in ease, which to me means something that would probably be different than what it means to you or to somebody else, right? Like in that is also being playful. It's like, and so when I'm like feeling, oh my gosh, I gotta go because I hate being on like short timelines driving the kids, it's like, oh, grounded in ease. And it's like a reset kind of button. It's a simple thing. I write it in my planner, but I also just sort of like embed it in myself for that week. And I come back to it all the time. Like that's just one very simple, easy thing. You don't have to be part of a weekly planning membership and a planner to do that. You could just you could create one for the day, but I think it's just like doing simple, small things with like frequency, like, like consistency, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Yeah. And like not big things, like just small, consistent kind of things is how we kind of get through feeling better, right? So you're not all like so you can be in your life in a present way, but not swallowed up by life, right? And then just feeling frazzled and like no further ahead and just like feeling like it brings you back to center. Yeah, whatever that word is. So that's, one simple thing. So
I love that one.
And then of course, like the things I know you teach is like taking care of your physical health, like for women, especially like as we age and, going through midlife and all of that, like, and for kids, I think through all the stage. And we definitely have good patterns in our household around sleep, but sleep is just like so important. So like, I don't keep my phone in my room. I keep it off, like in another room. It can still be used as my alarm clock so I can hear it. And then I have another backup, just like battery alarm clock. But that is a huge one because how we feel in the morning is set up, that night before, right? Like it's all things that our moms and our grandmothers taught, they're just like really basic things, but getting that good sleep and moving with your circadian rhythm, like just with our hormones, like there's so much going on in so many of our systems, but sleep is like the number one thing that we need for our body to clear itself of toxins and to repair and to like have good focus, all of that. Right. And then you can start your day off also not jumping to the phone and just, like, again, like
I say sleep, like I agree with you on the sleep. And I'm finding that in this stage of my life, going through menopause, sleep is So you're not dealing with things like we normally could in that clearer way when we are sleep deprived.
No, it's like it can be the same as being like impaired, right? Like depending on how sleep deprived we are, right? Like we know that for kids with developing brains and all of that, and through women going through menopause and that hormonal change is like when we were going through adolescence. Like it's a huge, not talked about enough.
It is
exactly talked about more and more, but it's a huge stage of life that is so important, that is even more important that we nourish and nurture and care for ourselves so that like we can move through this, not in a terrible way. Cause it's always like, oh, our periods are terrible and menopause is terrible. It's like, no, it doesn't, we don't have to approach it that way. Right. Like that's something that we were taught, and then doctors medicate us and all of this kind of a thing, but it's not saying again, like life, that it's going to all be like super happy and all of that. But there are ways to move through it where we're just really mindful of taking care of ourselves and listening to that wisdom of what it is that we need. Right.
Yeah. And I think that listening to our own bodies is absolutely massive. And as far as the sleep goes, there's things that you can do that have been proven, right? That you can do, before you go to bed, like a couple hours before you get, like turning the TV off, turning your phone
having
off.
an Epsom salt bath, like, obviously it's all based on individual needs and all of that, right? Every people might be sensitive to magnesium or whatever, right? But it's, there are, and again, it's just like coming back to like living on the farm, right? Like you and I talked a little bit before we went on this call. We had just gone on a family vacation. With my family, we went to the Bavarian Alps in Germany, but it was very much like living simply. And I felt amazing. Like, and I have like going through all these food sensitivities and all different things where I'm like not doing gluten, not doing dairy. I'm like seeing a nurse practitioner, like trying to get my hormones and all of the things. Right.
Yeah.
But there, like we would wake up by these amazing like church bells would wake us up. The kids would walk down on their own with $20 and they could buy croissants and pretzels and buns and everything there was like 12 of us for like under $20. It was amazing. And then they would make like farm fresh eggs. They went into this little kitchen and they would make us all breakfast.
Yeah.
And then we would go on these amazing hikes. We weren't like on all the technology and TV and all of that. And then the kids would play cards and then we'd all go have a good night's sleep and I could eat the bread and I felt amazing. Right. I tend to not to drink alcohol at all, but I was able to like have a glass of wine without feeling terrible the next day and just like living kind of simply, kind of like they do in the blue zones or whatever. Right. But it's just like, of course, that's not realistic I don't know. Maybe that's just a judgment I'm giving. But there's ways you can incorporate that style of living, but it is just like simplifying, right?
Absolutely. And really when you were talking, it also comes back down to common sense and moderation. And so you had fresh food, you had fresh air,
we had movement, we had connection, we had laughter. We weren't sitting there looking for the kind of connection or whatever on a screen, right? It was like with each other and it was just lovely. But it's about kind of bringing that back into just regular living when it's like, okay, kids are off to this activity and they're off to that activity, but there's still ways of or whatever, lifestyle you're living. There's ways to definitely incorporate that into your life, and you'll just notice a difference. Like just even moving more if that's within your reach, like walking and just connection and listening to yourself, honoring yourself, like just that sort of like slow down within it. And if you have to have a word, like unfortunately or fortunately, I need a word. I need the touchstone. Like I need that sort of thing.
I like that. And that's a great way to not wrap it up, but kind of sum it up is sometimes we just need something just to bring us back because we can tend to get overwhelmed or frustrated or just feeling out of control.
Absolutely.
And to just be able to come back to one thing. Like I know for me, my word always is love. It's simple. It's one that works for me because wherever I am, that's my touchstone. If I'm feeling frustrated, it's like, come from love. Like, come on, Carrie, just remember. And it's just a word that brings me back with the purest of my intention is if I'm going to show up wherever I'm going, that's what I'm coming from. And it's easy to forget. Right?
Yeah.
Of course it is. Because we're living. I mean, I'm not saying this to myself. Yes, our brain is going.
Well, we're constantly being inundated by sensory overload in ways that humanity never has. It's there will be so many more books.
But our bodies are so incredible at telling us when we are getting a little bit out of alignment.
Just have to listen. You have to have those that coming back to what the like similar but different experience that we both had of just like, oh my gosh, like, oh, hi, there you are.
Yeah.
Oh, like I could have a different conversation. You don't have to get stuck as long. We're all going to get stuck, but you don't have to get stuck as long. Right?
That's right. I think that's what the awareness piece is you've got that word or you've got that intention for the week, ease and calm or whatever that is. It just brings you back. Okay. Whew. And even if for just 1 second, it makes you just take a breath.
It changes the trajectory of that conversation forward of that, choice forward of that conversation you're having with yourself. Like sometimes we just need to go to bed and have a reset.
That's true. And the other thing, I know this is something that I do all the time if I'm in the car and I'm late.
Oh,
that is the worst.
It gets me like that. Even just makes me feel right here.
I know. I cannot stand being late.
So I'd love to hear what you're
all I do is I focus and I concentrate on not looking at the clock.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
I don't look at the clock. I'm like, I'm going to be fine. It's going to be fine. I'm good. Just concentrate on the driving, what's in front of me. And almost every time I've done that, I haven't been late.
And isn't that a good metaphor for life though? Like just concentrate on what's in front of you. Just be where you are.
Yes.
Don't be distracted by that blinking thing at you, right?
Because that's going to stress me out more when I see it getting closer and closer.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I know that it's natural when you do look at the blinking clock too, because our brains are wired in a certain way. There's like huge neuroscience, but also that you can with practice retrain.
Well, it calmed my heart. Otherwise I'm like, my heart starts racing.
Our bodies. Yeah. And the cortisol, all of it. Right. And then we're out of whack. And then it's just like this vicious cycle. Yeah,
totally. Yeah. So we're out of time already.
Fast. Yeah. I'm
so grateful that you were here. I appreciate it so much. For those of you here or watching the replay, emilymadill.com. You've got courses and books and resources and free stuff. I just encourage everybody to please go take a look at what Emily has to offer. I love what you're doing and what you're putting out in this world. You're making it a better place. And I really appreciate you. So for those of you next time, I hope to see you next week, and always know that you're more than enough as is. So we will see you next week, and thank you for being here. Bye-bye.